Hello and welcome to this video demonstration. In this video, we will talk about how to use bus in Orcad capture. The reason for using bus is to reduce the clutter in circuit design, especially this kind of circuit that you're looking at right now, where we have several clock implementations and which connects to several logic gates. What bus will help us to do is it will have shared connections coming from the clock to the logic gates. So to continue, for that first we will create a project in Orcad. The usual process of where you create an analog or mixed AD project, name it whatever you need to, and then make sure to select blank project. We will first add some clock sources or digital stimulus into our Orcad capture circuit, and let's just use two for now for this example, and two NAND gates as well as the port left connection. Usually we would have used wires to make these connections between the clock sources and the logic gates for the circuits that we have already talked about or designed. So instead we'll be using bus, as you can see from the toolbar. That would be placing the bus on your circuit. If you continue to extend your bus in this fashion from to the left or to the right, it doesn't really connect with the original bus like it used to for wires. So it has the bus implementation is slightly different from wires. You have to have a bus entry placed in between two buses in different directions for the connections in the bus to continue. So there are several ways to connect components onto your bus. For instance, so first let's create the profile for our clock sources. This stimulus will be named, let's say, clock I naught, and you choose clock and then proceed to define its frequency and duty cycle. Save the implementation and go for the next one. This clock will be named clock I1 and it will be having half the frequency of the first one. So there are several ways of connecting the components onto your bus. One of them is to select the pin that you want to connect and do a right click and select connect to bus, and there will be a cross like this that appear on your screen. And once you hover on the bus, you click on it and this enter net name window comes up, and you must name this connection and use the same name for any other components on your circuit that is trying to connect to this clock source. So if I name this I1, and the second connection is I0. One more way to connect different pins onto the bus is to select both of them by dragging on it and then right click, choose connect to bus, and once you have the cross signal appear on your screen, you can hover on the bus and do a left click to place the connections, and definitely you need to name them the right name. We want this to connect to I1, so both the connections were named I1, but as you can see, when you do a drag and select, it only names one of the connections, so you need to name the other one. We will come back to this later. For the second connection, you can also choose the pin that you want to connect. Right click and choose connect to bus, and once you hover on the bus and place the connection, you need to name it I naught because this is the one we want to connect to clock I naught. Same goes for the second one, and then you name it again, right? So once that is completed, we move on to just placing normal wires uh, to complete the connection. Let's rename the ports to A and B. Once we place the voltage markers, it will be easier to see the input and the output in the simulation. But first, let's create the simulation profile. We want the minimum delay. And once you run the simulation, you will see almost all the connection have something going on in them except for the one that we did not name. There is a high impedance over there. It shows Z because it is really not connected to anything because we haven't defined which connection it should be connected to. And that is where we need to name this connection. And to do that separately, we can choose the place net alias tool, and once you click on that, you name it to I1 because that's what we want it to connect to. And once you name it I1, press OK, and you need to place that name alias onto the connection. Once that is done, you will see the Z changes to 0. Now it has a connection, it understands where the signal is coming from. So if you run the simulation again, it should show all the connections properly. Yes, as you can see, you can verify if the connections are correct from the waveforms. And that is it. That is how you use one bus connection to replace several connections connecting different logic gates and clock sources on Orcad capture. Thank you.